Good morning, ladies and gentlemen of the media. Sorry to disturb you from your normal routine. I am very grateful that so many of you representing what appears to be the broadest cross-section of all of our local media. I'm very grateful that you have come here at my invitation, to treat with what is in effect a matter which is of serious concern, not just to me as a parliamentarian, not just to me as Prime Minister, but as to the country as a whole. I have been in public life now in the Parliament since 1986, January. That is approximately 32 years. But during that time, I have had to face many negative comments with respect to my conduct, my statements, my image. I've been accused of not smiling. I've been accused of, all kinds of things that comes with the territory. But there's one particular member of Parliament who has given himself the assignment to destroy my character. That member of Parliament is Dr. Roodal Moonilal. You may recall that when that very foul attack was made on me by Vanilla Allen Toppin in this Parliament, not just on me, but on my family, my father in particular, when it was over, as Vanilla Allen was congratulated by the then Prime Minister and other members of the House, Dr. Moonilal, who at the time held the position of Leader of Government Business, Leader of the House, he was asked by you, the media, whether he was aware of what Vanilla Allen was going to say in the Parliament. And he said he reviewed her speech and he approved of it. And in fact, they were all quite pleased at her performance. That is now part of the laws of this Parliament since whenever. Yes, I wasn't here on December 15th. I am reminded that I had a function at the Prime Minister's residence that evening, and I wasn't in the chamber and was unaware that Dr. Moonilal on that day had made certain allegations linking me to the A&V Drilling company and its difficulties with Petrotrin, the state enterprise. And the following day, apparently, that story was carried in the newspaper that Dr. Moonilal had made some scandalous allegations against me, but he had withdrawn them when challenged in the House. I was unaware of that. However, yesterday evening, Dr. Moonilal was at it again. He came to the Parliament and he made allegations, but on this occasion, supported by documents which he claimed to be evidence of wrongdoing on my part. And these documents, according to his testimony in the Parliament, were the outcome of an investigation which he carried out, which he pursued, not just in Trinidad and Tobago, but abroad, and identified the outcome of this investigation, which is that I, as Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, have now been shown by his evidence to have been involved in financial wrongdoing with persons named and known, and this company, A&V Drilling, which he has been promoting in recent months. So he was challenged by my colleagues in the chamber to take ownership of what he had been presenting, and he was guided by the Speaker as to what the standing orders provided for. He had the option to withdraw or to stand by his testimony and take ownership of the allegations with all the consequences that would flow from that. Unlike the December 15th attempt, where he withdrew, bolstered by his documents of evidence, he told the House, through the Speaker, that he take ownership of what he's saying, I presume, because he is trusting in the rectitude of what he was presenting to the nation. The long and short of it is that I, as Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, who have been doing whatever I had to do to lead a government based on morality in public affairs, and to, over these decades, conduct myself in a manner not to prevent persons from making allegations against me, because I can't do that. Persons can and will make allegations without my knowledge and or consent or agreement. But I've conducted myself in public life and in private life, not so as to prevent allegations, but in the event that malicious persons like Dr. Moonilal or others make allegations, that it must always be that those allegations are untrue and must not be supportable by any action on my part. So yesterday, Dr. Moonilal put on the parliamentary record and published for the world that he has unearthed evidence in a Florida bank linking the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, linking me personally as Member of Parliament and citizen and individual, but more importantly as Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, linking me to financial transactions in Florida to a company that apparently has difficulties with a state enterprise, and I have been acting in a corrupt manner with other persons named by him. I want to make it abundantly clear to all the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago that this is a monstrous lie. There's absolutely no truth in anything that Dr. Moonilal said about me yesterday. I have transacted no business in Florida with any person, local or foreign, male or female. I have no banking relationships with any financial institution in Florida. To the best of my knowledge and recollection, the only banking relationship I ever had in the United States was in the 1970s when we used to have traveler's checks. I had an account in a bank in New York. I don't even know where. I can't even recall where it was, but I know it was in New York. That was since 1970, mid-70s. And when I stopped using that account, the account had $20 in it, and I'm sure by now it probably wouldn't even be found, because after a period of time, such dormant accounts are struck out from banks. So for all practical purposes, I have no banking relationship in the United States, and I've transacted no banking business with any person, least of all the names he used. So all of this matter, there is no basis in fact. It's a fabrication by Dr. Moonilal. And I will go a little further and say Dr. Moonilal and the UNC, in their effort to tie me in my capacity as a Member of Parliament, as Prime Minister, with the issues relating to a private company and Petrotrin, A&V Drilling and Petrotrin. They have done this consistently since that matter arose. The leader of the opposition has been persistently attempting to link me to A&V Drilling's private business and Petrotrin's business with A&V Drilling, where I have no relationship whatsoever. So now that the months and the weeks have shown that that could not be supported, what they were saying, Dr. Moonilal yesterday purported to provide evidence of a financial nature and linking me to the most heinous crime, which is corruption on the part of the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, engaged in activities unbecoming of any person who has taken the oath of office that I have taken, and a person who is trying to run a government that is rooted in the fundamental principle of the party that I lead, which is morality in public affairs. So, at this stage, having done that, I respond in the following way. As I've just denied it, without fear of contradiction, I am here today publicly requesting of the Commissioner of Police that, given the fact that Dr. Moonilal has given names, addresses, and other details of banks and persons in support of this monstrous allegation, that the Commissioner of Police, in his independent capacity as such, immediately authorize and direct the relevant arm of the Police Service of Trinidad and Tobago to investigate this matter as a matter of urgency and report to the public on the findings. And of course, I don't have to tell the Commissioner of Police this, to take the necessary action of whatever is found in the course of wrongdoing on the part of any individual. Secondly, I am calling on the Financial Intelligence Unit, the FIU, to immediately investigate this matter. And while the FIU has some requirement to keep its investigations secret, in situations like this, the outcome of an FIU investigation ought to be made known to the public, and I so request that the FIU investigate this matter immediately and report to the public on its findings with respect to me and any other person who may be interested in their business being made public. I certainly want mine to be made public. And I also am instructing the Attorney General to use the Mutual Legal Assistance Treaty, MLAT, to communicate officially from Trinidad and Tobago with the authorities in Florida to pursue the statements made and documents quoted from by Dr. Moonilal yesterday in pursuance of confirmation of any and all allegation made by Dr. Moonilal in the Parliament yesterday, and that the Attorney General would do this with dispatch and make the responses from Florida available to the public of Trinidad and Tobago. And this afternoon at the Parliament, in keeping with the standing orders of the Parliament, I will be making a statement under statement by members, personal explanations in the Parliament for the record of Hansard, and the other developments that will take place in the Parliament this evening, this afternoon. And I have with me here my attorney, Mr. Michael Kwamina, who would want to comment for the benefit of media practitioners and the public, specifically the legal side of what we witnessed yesterday evening by Dr. Moonilal's excursion.
Obviously, the statements made by Dr. Moonilal yesterday in Parliament would most definitely attract the laws of defamation. However, as you're well aware, he would be protected by parliamentary privilege. The fact about it is that the emails that he has referred to, the documents that he's referred to, is firstly an email which carries the email address of the recipient, jrowley.rawlinson@gmail.com. That quite obviously is not the email address of the Honorable Prime Minister. And however, it goes on to read, "Good morning, Honorable Prime Minister." Now, we obviously have no explanation as to why those words appear there, but as I clearly indicated, the address is not the address of the Honorable Prime Minister. Dr. Moonilal in Parliament yesterday then proceeded to read the contents of this email, which carries, again, no date and clearly is not addressed to the Honorable Prime Minister. And then he went on to link that email to a document which purports to be a banking document. What I have been able to obtain in terms of what he referenced yesterday is a document, is a picture of a document that is carefully cut so one cannot easily or at all discern the origin of that document. And it makes reference to a bank account number. And Dr. Moonilal, in his presentation yesterday, flowed from the email, which is so quite obviously false, to this bank document as if it were one document. And ladies and gentlemen of the media, it is not one document. It is two documents, a clearly false email, and then a document which purports to be a banking document. As I clearly indicated, one does have to overcome a hurdle of parliamentary privilege. But as I'm sure you're also well aware, if you repeat the statement outside of the parliament, then you can be subject to an action in defamation. We are firmly of the view that Dr. Moonilal has, in fact, by his activities after the sitting last night, done actions which amount to a repetition of the statement. One such action is he has shared a post on Facebook media, which post clearly says, "This is the first time in the history of Trinidad and Tobago's parliamentary democracy that the primary ministers of government, including the Prime Minister, have declined to participate in a budget debate, the most important and far-reaching in the parliamentary agenda. This comes amid major allegations leveled by the opposition, and in particular, documentary evidence by Dr. Moonilal of gross financial wrongdoing by the Prime Minister. Dr. Rowley, his Attorney General, National Security Minister, and Leader of the House have not responded to the allegations of corruption linked to the already damaging Petrotrin fake oil issue." That was posted by Dr. Moonilal. That, without a question, is Dr. Moonilal confirming what he said in Parliament. And in these circumstances, it is our intention to launch an action in relation to Dr. Moonilal with respect to these statements. I will also be having a careful look at the interviews which Dr. Moonilal has conducted during the course of the day and adding to that claim if it is necessary. In addition to which, you would no doubt be aware that the video of Dr. Moonilal's presentation has been widely circulated on social media. Those paid bloggers who choose to comment adversely in relation to my client will also be the subject of an action in defamation. They are not protected by parliamentary privilege. And if they choose to comment adversely and make statements which are unacceptable in relation to my client, well then in those circumstances they will be the subject matter of an action. One other issue which I wanted to point out is that the purported bank document which indicates the beneficiary or recipient as being Formula One Trading, of course, short amount of time has passed between the statement and now, so investigations are continuing. But one did take the liberty of having a look at the company's registry in Trinidad and Tobago, and there is in fact a company called Formula One Trading. And that company in fact ceased to exist in October of 2011. And the reason why it was struck off the list was in fact that it never in fact operated. So insofar as it might be a suggestion that Formula One Trading might be a company located in Trinidad, that is what our researchers have brought about so far. We are certain that our researchers will demonstrate that everything that was presented yesterday is in fact false, and therefore that is why it will form the subject matter of an action, and that is why in confirming his statements made in Parliament, outside of the Parliament, Dr. Moonilal will have to face the consequences before the High Courts of Trinidad and Tobago. So, unless there's anything further, that is all I have to say.
Just for clarity, you would have heard Mr. Kwamena saying that these two pieces of paper, one can dignify them as calling them documents. These two pieces of paper, one, many of you, I'm sure by now, most of you media personnel would have seen these two pieces of paper circulating. The one with my name on it is purporting to be a bank document. And Dr. Moonilal was at pains to point out that my name was there in the context of being a beneficiary for attention of some sums of money or so. And the other one is the mysterious email which is used to tie me to these transactions, but with an email address which is clearly not mine, and an email that doesn't seem to make sense to me, and I don't even make sense to you, where somebody's writing to somebody else through an email that is not mine, but addressing their Prime Minister. I'm the only Prime Minister in this country, so it had to be me. But the bottom line is, when if a document is missing for your benefit, those of you who didn't see the performance, is the Hansard in using these two separate pieces of paper, one, the strange email, the other one, the purported bank document, in presenting his case to the Parliament, bolstered by this solid evidence, as he called it, of bank transaction, where he said that there is evidence in a bank. And he went on to quote numbers relating to the bank, SWIFT number, account number, and so on. What Dr. Moonilal was doing was reading those numbers, not from a bank document, but from the email, and ascribing them as though they had come from the bank document to which he had initially referred. That is what he did. So those numbers you would have heard, that sounded so impressive that he put out with such a plum. The bank number, this number, and that number, and the bank address, and so on and so on. Those did not come from any even purported bank document. Those were coming from this mysterious email of dear Prime Minister. That is the extent of the misleading that took place yesterday. If there are any questions that are relevant to this development, I will attempt to address them if it's advisable, because I'm now in the hands of my lawyer on this matter. This matter is now before my lawyers, and I would refrain from making too many additional statements, and I will await the outcome of the investigations I've asked for. So if there are any questions that you may want to raise in that context, I will try to assist you.
Do you have any account in Mexico? Because I think one of the documents refers to money being sent to Mexico.
I saw the reference to Mexico in the email. Right? That's on some document. The answer to your question is no. I have no transaction in Mexico, not now, not ever, and I know of no person who I'm doing business with in Mexico.
Dr. Rowley, I don't know, maybe your lawyer might be better placed to answer this, but I was doing some checking last night, and the beneficiary account number 114515, there's something called an IBN number. So I entered that, and it didn't seem to add up, because the IBN number consists of up to 32 alphanumeric characters. But also interestingly was the fact that it also spoke about, as we pointed out, the club, which is in Mexico, and the account number. And having done that, principally, this is what a wire transfer would look like from Wells Fargo. And I don't think from the excerpt that was brought to the media's attention until looked anything like this, right? There was also two names on the document. Now, my understanding, based on speaking to people in Florida and so on, bankers and so on, is that when you send this purported number, IBN number, and you have names attached to that beneficiary account number, you also have to have account numbers attached to those people, which is obviously absent in this regard here. And I know the financial aspect of it might a little bit be still being looked at, but based on what I have seen, and speaking with people, it seems to me that it's for all intents and purposes, looks very fake.
Well, I'm not surprised that you have discovered that, because those of you who saw the performance of Dr. Moonilal, you would have seen how he prevaricated when challenged by the attorney. I wasn't in the chamber, but I was watching it on television from upstairs. I was working upstairs, and I was looking at it on the television, but the Attorney General was on the floor. And when Dr. Moonilal was challenged, you would have seen that he was reluctant to be as open and cooperative, and he virtually had to be forced to conclude from the innuendo he was making. As a matter of fact, the speaker used the word which was it? Backpedal, right? But more importantly, you would notice that he never made the documents available to the House. He told the House he conducted this investigation and he was presenting the outcome of that investigation. And one would have thought that the logical thing to have done is to make the documents available so that those who are receiving the findings of this investigation would have been able to do what you have done there, Mark, which is to look at the document to see what it says. But in the contrary, what was fed to the international and local public was a carefully cut document that allowed you to see my name in the context of what he was saying in the parliament. But the document was bereft of any information that could guide you to a conclusion that this is, in fact, a bank document that ties me to a bank transaction. Well,
I think the Prime Minister has said that investigations will be conducted. The Attorney General will be using his powers under the Mutual Legal Assistance Treaty to get information. So we would certainly be pursuing all avenues in order to demonstrate how much of a falsity this contribution was. But Mr. Vasant, let me caution you, if you make any more contributions, I may call you as an expert witness.
But I just want to point out that if you go back to Dr. Moonilal's presentation, which is now recorded on Hansard, the document, the trading company, which I am now being told ceased to exist since 2011. Based on what was presented to the Parliament yesterday, it was presented in the context that there was some business between a bank and that company in recent times, which clearly appears not to be so. Okay?
But could I ask, is there any case, given the fact that Dr. Moonilal is someone in public life as a you, is there any case for sort of sending this to the Integrity Commission?
The who?
An investigation?
The Integrity Commission.
Well, it's there, right? It's supposed to be there for something like this. So do you think that he might send it, or you might send it? That's what I mean.
I've sent it where I want it to go, which is into my hands of my lawyers. That's where I'm sending it. I'm going to speak in the Parliament just for posterity to put it on record, because he has put on record that very damaging slander. The record of the Parliament for all times must show my response, and I will be doing that this afternoon. But in terms of where I'm going to send it, I've done so already. It's in the hands of my lawyers.
And there is no amount on any of the documents. Normally, I think one of the first things you would do is to send in something to a bank is to say how much money the two beneficiaries were supposed to receive.
Well, he gave you, for the purpose for which this is being done, he did give you an idea, because I seem to recall he did mention some amount that Mr. Deokiesingh got. And I presume that if Deokiesing's name is in that context, once you put my name there, it gives you an idea as to what it is. It's large sums of money.
The documents, which was, well, I think all members of the media got copies of the documents via WhatsApp and so on. The documents didn't give that information.
Which is why I'm saying that to get the full scale of this travesty, there's a third document that you have to use, which is his presentation on Hansard. You have to read what he was saying to the House with these documents to see the extent to which Dr. Moonilal has violated all norms and decency yesterday.
One quick question, if I may. Senior Dr. Moonilal, good morning, Prime Minister, and through your attorney, as he claimed, as he took ownership for the statement, does that reduce his parliamentary protection in any way?
Well, taking ownership in Parliament would really subject him at that point in time to the Privileges Committee, which I will leave that in other people's hands. I believe there is something in that respect, but that is a Privileges Committee issue. What, as an attorney dealing with the High Court, what I have to look for is whether he takes ownership of the statement outside of Parliament, whether he repeats it, and as the courts have said, you don't necessarily have to stand up and actually repeat the actual words. If you take ownership of the statement outside of Parliament, then that would allow me to bring an action in defamation, and hence why I'm confident that we will be doing so.
Mr. Conlon, is this something that has happened before, to your recollection, a lawsuit against an MP with regards to statement made in Parliament?
Internationally, yes. There is a famous case where the parliamentarian outside of Parliament, he said, "I do not resile from what I have said," and that was sufficient enough for him.
There's a case in Australia.
I think it's New Zealand. Yes. So, but I'm not aware of one within this jurisdiction. But certainly there is that landmark case which still holds strong in the relevant text.
Is this a matter that could go all the way to the Privy Council?
Well, it depends what Mr. Moonilal wants to do at the end of the High Court matter.
Dr. Rowley, excuse me, I'm not sure if you've said it publicly before, but do you know the other person named in this, on this check?
Sure.
Mr. Vidya Deokiesingh and his matter.
Oh, I know Mr. Deokiesingh very well, and you would have heard this being said. This is what gives a lot of the fuel to the allegations, basis or otherwise. Mr. Deokiesingh was a PNM, he's from Pinal. He was a PNM member. He contested a general election, I think twice, against Mrs. Kamla Prasad Bisesa in the last election, where Mrs. Prasad Bisesa was the sitting prime minister. Her opponent from the PNM side was Mr. Deokiesingh. And for that to have happened, Mr. Deokiesingh would have been screened at Baldizi House as a PNM candidate to take part in the general election, and I was the chairman of the screening committee. So I know Mr. Deokiesingh very well, and I seem to remember he was also, I think, chairman of the corporation at one time. So Mr. Deokiesingh is a very well-known public figure in Pinal, in the PNM, in the country.
Have you communicated with him about this revelation? Has he expressed any concern?
Here? This thing?
Yeah.
No, I have no contact with him on this since recently.
Do you think that people, there may be persons out there, assuming that a member of Parliament will not come to Parliament and say something with documentation and so on, bring false documents, that people might in fact believe these allegations?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
Well, that people will assume that somebody getting up in the Parliament of all places and making an allegation that there will be more substance. There will be some substance. All of it isn't true, that some of it may be.
No. Parliament is a place where all kinds of ventilation takes place. That's what the Parliament is for. You ventilate things, but so you can expect anything in the Parliament. But the question is responsible ventilation. What exactly can be examined? Whether it's an investigation required, or in this case, an investigation has shown, and the public is being told. So don't be surprised at anything that comes up in the Parliament.
But why don't you respond immediately in the Parliament?
I sought to get up on the 48-6, but you would have observed that the Speaker didn't allow me to join the debate. So, as I said, I was observing it from upstairs, and when I got into the chamber, he was still performing. I sought to get up, but there was so much happening. I didn't have a say, but I mean, no problem. I mean, there are many other days like today and going forward. Certainly not. I mean, the debate did not collapse. I mean, the debate ended when the opposition failed to put in a speaker. The last speaker who spoke in the debate was Fitzgerald Hines. The next speaker due was an opposition member. And the next thing I heard, the speaker was calling on Mr. Imber to wind up because the opposition had shown no interest in continuing. I guess they had achieved their objective of this matter and had no further interest in the debate. Thank you all very much.